geek out.
Shimmy, shimmy, ya, shimmy, yo, shimmy, yay. We got Jason Latour on the show today. This is another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
And if my old dirty bastard-esque intro wasn't a giveaway, this week we'll be interviewing Jason Latour. His Image Comics series, Loose Ends, debuts on Wednesday, January 25th. This interview starts out pretty. I think you can when listening to the playback, we're both us and him are kind of surprised how deep and personal it gets from jump. Should I start off with more softball questions? I feel like sometimes, like when Joe Harris was on the show, I was like, "What's rock and roll?" Like it was more well thought out than that, but it was like that kind of question.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I mean, it yields different results. That's for sure.
Truth.
Truth and power. Power, truth. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know.
Anyway, let's let you guys at home judge for yourselves. Listen to the interview. Here's Jason Latour. And joining us this week, we have superstar comic book creator, Eisner Award-winning comic book creator, might I add, Jason Latour on the show. He's here promoting his Image Comics miniseries, Loose Ends, which premieres through Image on January 25th. You can also follow Jason's work over on the, again, Eisner Award-winning Southern Bastards, and you can follow his antics over on the Marvel side of things with Spider-Gwen. Jason, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. We'll see how this goes, how long you can keep me here.
All right.
Oh, challenge accepted. And and there goes the connection. Oh, God. But so between Loose Ends and between Southern Bastards, we're looking at these very kind of like violent, bored people in the South. As someone that has grown up in North Carolina, and we ourselves we're from Virginia, so we're right there under the Mason-Dixon line. What do you think it is about the South that makes it so almost like lawless?
Oh, I think we like to believe it's lawless. Man, are we going to get this deep like off the bat?
I could ask you what your favorite menu item is at KFC. I know you're a Colonel Sanders fan.
There's just a lot of stuff that I feel like has been very tough to reconcile for people that grow up here. There's like the problem with anything is there's no with anything this is a very loaded question because there's no simple answer to any of this. Obviously, like there's a deep psychological wound to like growing up in the South that I think precedes like our generation. It's a thing that has systematically sort of like filtered its way from generation to generation, and it probably goes all the way back to like the founding of the country. And it's a really interesting time to be sort of wrestling with it because I think for a long time you would look at that map and you could very clearly like draw lines and say, well, this state's red and this state's blue, and people in one place think a certain way and in other places they don't. And I think, if anything, the last election shows you that people have dramatically like oversold that as a concept. But I do think that because people in other parts of the country have always had like very crystal clear like behaviors, or what seemed to be clear behaviors that they could point to and say like, well, that's an area of the country that's backwards. It has sort of like caused even like sort of well-reasoned people who grow up here who are a little more open-minded or who are open to other ways or want to portray themselves as something different than the stereotype. It still weighs over your head, the idea that you've been reduced to a stereotype and that the people around you don't make it any easier for you to get away from that. And I think that on some level, that's what these books are seeking to address. In Loose Ends, it was a little more of I was a much younger person at the time. And a little, probably angrier, though, like the last couple months have tested that. But I think Loose Ends was a meditation at the time on like me trying to make peace with all this stuff. And Southern Bastards is, I would say, strangely a little more even-handed. I think with Southern Bastards, me and Jason are presenting like really terrible people, but also on some level trying to show you that like these wounds don't come from nowhere. That people can be complete sons of bitches, complete like ruthless, vile, irredeemable bastards. But on some level, they have something about them that's like very human and very like fragile. And I think that the counterbalance to all that stuff is that we're trying to do our best to make a really, really entertaining and good representation of the art form and of comics and stuff. And if you feel that way at all, then you can point to people from the South that made it. And I think that anytime you have a good artist or a good athlete or a scientist or anybody that comes from an area which is usually seen as not producing those kinds of things, it speaks to what that culture like can be, So hopefully we're doing a little bit of that.
Well, absolutely. And I think, to touch on your Spider-Gwen work, I think on the one hand, you've got these very personal, rough around the edges stories through Loose Ends, through Southern Bastards, which clearly come from a very personal place. But over on Spider-Gwen, I mean, it's watching, Gwen Stacy rise up against, Matt, evil, twisted Matt Murdock and all that sort of things. And somehow you managed to fit in a music montage set to You Can Call Me Al, which was like the greatest thing in a Marvel comic last year.
Thanks, man. Well, yeah, like somebody asked me in an earlier interview, like if I consider myself to be a Southern writer, and I was like, well, yeah, it's just taken a long time for me to figure out what that means. And Spider-Gwen is a direct like outgrowth of like what my approach to that is that I think a lot of people box themselves in to a certain way of thought about what their work can be or what it should be or what it is they're there to represent as their brand, And I'm not saying that you should not lean into what you do well and you shouldn't like work to like hone your craft. But if you're trying to live an interesting life, then I think that you have, in a life that has some level of like self-examination, you want your art to push you in that direction. And I think that by virtue of that outlook, like, you can't help but try and find other outlets to express like who you are. I'm like the idiot that dances with like a necklace made of Werther's Originals on Instagram. Like I'm that guy, and I'm also a guy who, really loves and identifies with like and hates Southern culture. So, those are just 2 or 3 like little minor aspects of my personality. And fortunately, comics is like a malleable enough medium for me to be able to make a lot of different kinds of stories. And I think that they all are sort of unified by the fact that they're filtered through me to some degree. But I just think it's really important to try and allow your work to help you express yourself and figure out who you are rather than to be like caged by it,
So are we going to see Coach Boss develop a healthy love of Werther's Originals in the next arc?
He definitely would have those in his pocket, right?
I feel like he would have like those strawberry candies that are like soft on the inside.
Oh yeah, those I like those strawberry candies.
Maybe
candies? He would. Yeah. I do think like revealing that he has like a little secret sweet tooth would be pretty funny. Like that he hides his little candy addiction. Yeah, that would be pretty funny.
Every time I see your your tweets pop up on my Twitter, when I'm going through, I have like an immediate craving for the Werther's Originals, just like bathing in the wrappers.
That's good.
And then I can just and then I can just smell KFC. Like everything I just like we were joking before we started the interview that we have a local KFC that we have down the road that I don't know, like you guys, because Sam, you don't live as close to it as we do,
I live in Arlington, yeah.
But Chris and I grew up, and we would go, like, I'd walk from high school to this KFC, and it just closed down, like, what, a couple months ago?
Yeah, like just 2 months ago.
Guys, we're trying not to be heavy anymore.
Yeah. But no, I just, figured, from one fellow KFC lover to another, you could.
Well, I'm going to spoil this for you, as I don't eat fast food.
Ooh.
I just like it's
Interview?
a good joke. I just always think like I look like a weird version of Colonel Sanders. When I was in high school, though, me and my brother would like go hit the KFC buffet and eat enough KFC buffet at lunch so we wouldn't eat for like 2 days. So like I've been there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we're not going to be eating KFC anytime soon because it's gone now. So.
Yeah. I have a very strict rules about fast food in the sense that like I'm like, man, I will eat like the most fattening, greasy fried garbage in the world, but I just need to know that somebody made it with love.
Yeah.
Right?
That's fair enough.
Like,
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to be like some chicken somebody just pulled out of a fucking plastic bag that was air flown in from some other part of the country.
Oh man.
I think that's a metaphor for the entire South. It could be like the vilest, unhealthiest thing, but it's coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's like one of the dichotomies that both these books try to explore is like this idea that like, the perception of what a Southerner is like it's a little warped. It really is a little bit more like it's kind of an existential war between like the Walmart country Southerner, like the people of Walmart sort of version of what people view the South as, and then a more like what my grandparents were like, where they grew up on a farm, like raising pigs and tobacco and stuff, and then also like where do those things intersect, and where are they at odds with one another, and then on top of that, there's the idea that like all these like boundaries, like patriarchal and racial boundaries, are finally starting to be torn down a little bit. And are creating, like whole new kinds of people. And I think that it is really like an interesting, to me, I mean, I don't mean to like disparage like people that live in other parts of the country, but man, like to me, it's like, at least in terms of like white culture to me all sort of blends together. And being from the South was always like, man, at least I have a cultural identity. Like as bad as it is, at least I have like this like really strong cultural identity. And I think at times when I wanted to sort of like walk away from it and toss it in the trash and keep moving, that was something that like I felt like, nah, this is too important. I can't just like, dismiss it and become somebody else, because so many other people seem to not have an identity or tie to their roots at all.
Yeah. And I feel like both of us, I mean, like both Virginia and North Carolina are kind of at the forefront. They're both battleground states. And so there's always this kind of like push-pull between the future and between tradition and everything there. And I always feel like a lot of frustration.
North Carolina is like at times feels like a gated community. It's like somebody found all this amazing real estate and was like, we got to get some people to move down here. And then once like all the nice stuff went up, they were like, no, I'll throw up the gate. And I really feel like that might be oversimplifying it, but I think that is what's going on. I mean, we had like a crazy population flux in the last 10 years, probably 15 years. And I think that they've reached a point where they're just like, all right, enough. Like I moved away from, the big liberal cities. Some of these rich people moved down here and kind of had their little white flight moments. They're like, we moved away from the big liberal cities so that we could do whatever we want. And now we're starting to get outnumbered. And so they want to put the gate up. So like living in Virginia or North Carolina, I always say it's like being Jon Snow on the wall. It's like, South Carolina's the wildlings.
Hear that, Gamecocks? Hear that?
Yeah. And North Carolina is, you know, it's the North. It's the Edward Stark and all that stuff. And people in that community like think they're slightly better, you know, and really there's nothing to really nothing but a wall that's the difference. And it's just that is the weirdest analogy ever. And I really started leaning into it as if it was going to be as if it was going to be really profound. Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, lest we forget it, we did just talk about Werther's Originals for a while. We're fine.
Yeah.
But so you mentioned that Loose Ends came about, years later or years earlier. Not years later. We're not talking about a future comic necessarily, but the how does it feel kind of revisiting this book years down the line? Does it kind of feel like a time capsule to that period in your life and those emotions?
Absolutely. It's strange. I mean, the world is the world that I live in now. I began this comic when I was I started the rough idea for it sort of probably became clear to me in 2005, 2006. I started writing it in 2007. It's set in 2007, and the first issue came out in 2011. So we're talking about a comic that was being created at the height of the war in the Middle East. George Bush was president. Nobody ever heard of Barack Obama. Donald Trump was still just a reality show, host. And it's weird to me to think of it as being this thing that feels so distant, but at the same time, I want to feel like that era was a long time ago. But then every time I open the news, it feels like we live in an Onion headline now. And it just makes it very clear to me that we haven't reconciled any of that stuff. So strangely, when I go back and look at this comic, while it is a time capsule, it also feels weirdly prescient and it almost has a different relevance now. That's just on a level when I try to separate myself from it. Obviously, it's the comic that opened all these doors for me. I would have never gotten a job at writing in Marvel. I would have never created Southern Bastards with Jason Aaron. So it's really important to me on that level. But also, I know the effort that we put into making it, and I know just how we felt when we were making it. We really felt like we were on the outside of comics, sort of looking in, and we were just trying to do something good. Something that we felt was our, at the time, the summation of what we could do. And the marketplace was just giving 10 years ago for creator-owned comics, and for creator-owned comics, especially that you'd never heard of the people that made them. So, we were very lucky that we had a very supportive publisher, which was Kevin Gardner at 12 Gauge, and he's our editor at Image now. And there was nothing that was really that he could do when you combine the idea that you have these people sort of overly ambitious, this overly ambitious project, couple that with the way the market was. So we only got 3 of the 4 issues out, but here we are 10 years later, and my career alone is completely different. And Southern Bastards exists and seems to have a really good audience, and it was this is the sister comic. This is, if there's a family tree, there's Southern Bastards and the Scout, and then this is the weird fruit that's hanging off one of the branches. But it's feels like it is something that definitely needed to be represented and repackaged, and I'm just really thankful that Image felt the same way.
Just as relevant now as it was then. No.
Well, it's tough to look back at it sometimes, and anything you look back on that you did, so long ago, it's often oh man, I wish I could change that, or man, maybe they're gonna think that the thing I wrote 10 years ago is way better than the crap I'm doing now. But it's an interesting time capsule also in that respect, because when I look at it, I'm forced to sort of reckon with and reconcile and rethink I said reconcile. Reconcile and rethink all the things I wrote 10 years ago. And it's actually kind of a gift in that way.
Can almost as tracing your evolution. So to kind of look towards the future, you've got another Image Comics series coming out, Black Cloud with Ivan Brandon. Where does that kind of come from? What kind of place does that come from? Where on the Latour creative tree? What sort of fruit does this bear?
I don't know. You know, it's somewhere between Spider Gwen and Loose Ends. Like it's a story. It's a pretty crazy story. I always like try and sell it like it's Jessica Jones meets Roger Rabbit, and I always joke that like that doesn't do it any justice because Roger Rabbit is something meets Roger Rabbit is what I pitch all my stuff as now. So it's about a young woman named Zelda who's from another reality, and there's another reality. In this other reality, her ancestors had long ago separated away from our universe and sort of created their own. They were this like magic sort of cabal of storytellers and magicians and people who basically put in fairy tale terms, put like imagination into the world, right? And they become sort of upset and sort of felt like they were being taken for granted by regular people, and sort of created their own place where it was going to be a meritocracy, where the strongest idea wins. And then generations later, Zelda comes along and looks back at her grandparents and realizes, like, oh, it's all kind of a sham. Like, this dream you sold me is all sort of, like, the same people stay in power. And she tries to start a revolution, and it goes sideways, and she ends up sort of self-exiled in New York with nothing to her name, and no history, nothing to her name, as a homeless person, like, sort of bouncing around the streets of New York. And it takes her a very short while before she realizes that the one thing that she has of any worth is that she can sell off the place that she comes from. She can sort of act like a ferryman, taking people back and forth for money. And that sort of gets her embroiled in this weird detective story where the biggest fish she's ever got on the line in terms of, money wants her to do something really, really sketchy. And that puts her sort of at odds with like the world she comes from and the world we live in. And it's an interesting sort of exploration in that we're trying to tell a genre story that embraces like all the things that comics can do visually, imagination wise. But at the same time, it's also sort of a commentary on what it is to be a creative person.
Kind of a compromise.
It's a weird, ambitious project, but I think it's coming together like phenomenally. Like it's a real murderer's row of, like, take me out of it. I'm co-writing it with Ivan. He writes Drifter. He wrote Viking. The artist is Greg Hinkle, that drew Airboy. Oh yeah. And our colorist is Matt Wilson from Wicked Divine, Thor. Tom Mueller, who does all his great design stuff, did our logo and stuff. He's a great designer. Does all his Image and DC stuff, like Motor Crush. And, it just really, really, it's the closer we're getting to it coming out, it's like, wow, we're 5 issues ahead. Like, this thing's real, and it feels like really exciting.
Kind of speaking of things coming out and coming back, what can we, the day that this thing drops, we got new Southern Bastards out. I was just wondering if we could kind of get some insight on the latest arc with Earl Tubbs' daughter, kicking ass and maybe taking names, really just kicking ass and chewing bubblegum.
Did you see that thing about They Live? Not to sideswipe your question, but you made me think of. Did you see that last night? Like the neo-Nazis.
Oh yeah.
It was about.
Yeah, Carpenter was like going on the warpath about that.
Oh man,
yeah.
Oh, I missed it.
We live in a. Yes, Roberto's gonna make some Nazis eat sunglasses. Like that's what this arc is.
Oh.
No, this arc is we've done it I feel like we did a very purposeful job of trying to really sell the world we're in, and with Southern Bastards, and the second arc is in some ways about getting you to, to realize that though Coach Boss may be a complete son of a bitch, he also an irredeemable bastard, possibly. Like, he does come from a very wounded and normal place. And the one thing that sort of grants him humanity is that once upon a time he was a little kid that nobody gave a shit about, like the whole world wanted to get rid of. And he figured out he was good at football. And he realized that people respect football, and that football, like, is like a social opiate for the people that he lives around. And so suddenly, like, by winning football games and being productive at football games, he found his place in the world. And people tried to take that away from him time and time and again. So, like, he's very, very protective of that because he knows the power of it and the influence it holds, not just for himself, but for his community. And so we've seen in, like, Arc 3 that he's starting to lose football games. And so now he's really, like, entering this fourth arc. The idea is he is really, it doesn't look like he can fix it on the football field. So the consequence of not being able to fix it on the football field is that, it's going to ruin his life and possibly the lives of all these other people that he's had under his thumb for so long. So he's really forced to look in the mirror and decide, football was the one place where he had this sort of like samurai code about, that you can do anything you want off the field, so long as on the field it's meritocracy. And, but it doesn't exist in a bubble, and I think he's starting to have to come face to face with that. And that's what a lot of what this arc is about, is how far is Coach Boss willing to go as a gangster in order to protect, the one thing he loves, which is football, and his position in the community. And I can tell you, it's not going to be an easy choice.
Well, seeing Coach, kind of on the ropes, and I think dragging down so many people in Craw County down with him, and kind of humanizing him. That that definitely propelled a lot of Southern Bastards, certainly second and third arc. Over on the Marvel side, back on the Marvel side of things, Spider-Gwen's main antagonist is kind of this evil kingpin, Matt Murdock. We haven't really seen him. He's always got every single, at least as far as I can remember, he's always had every angle figured out. He's, knew that Gwen had lost her powers temporarily and everything. Are we going to start to see more about what made the Man Without Fear become the kingpin of New York City, and what are we ever going to see him on the ropes without, I guess, giving too much away?
So I'm growing up, I was a big Daredevil fan. And I think one of the things that has always been alluring about Daredevil as a character is, and I think you even see it translate into other media, is that he's a little closer to maybe going crazy and becoming an evil, like maybe overstepping his boundary a little bit. And I think that the simple premise here is this is a world where he did. If you go back and read those handbook entries that we do in the back, his actually has his origin in there. That's not to say that we won't show it again. But I think he's a really compelling character because his power alone is like morally compromising. When we hint at in like a couple future issues that, Gwen Stacy doesn't know that he has those powers. Like she has no idea that he can tell when she's lying or listen in on her conversations. And, because why would she? And that's something that will sort of will illuminate like how he's able to stay, a couple steps ahead of her at every turn, and how he's able to wield such influence over people. In the 616, that's one of the things that's like really a godsend about having your own universe, is that in the 616 side of Marvel, like everybody just takes for granted that people know how Daredevil's powers work, and with this, we can sort of slowly reveal that, he can manipulate and use that to his advantage. It almost makes it all new again. But he's a lot of fun to write. he just adds a level of menace to the book that I think a lot of people maybe overlook sometimes. You know, I know from when you step back from Spider-Gwen, it's very purposefully like bright and clean, and it sort of tries to be inviting and fresh. But I also knew that the book needed like something to counterbalance that sort of stuff. And so that's why there's so much stuff that's about like Captain Stacy and Frank Castle and Matt Murdock. These are like characters I think that can provide real consequences in the story.
I mean, and this version of Matt Murdock enjoys being Kingpin as much as like mainstream Matt Murdock Prime.
Matt Murdock Prime
enjoys being Daredevil. Like he has that fun with
yeah,
it.
probably so. Yeah.
Always that smirk on his face.
Yeah. Well, you know, how much of that is just psychological warfare, right? I mean, how much of it is, you know, just taunting your opponent? I think he likes to make Gwen feel like he's in a lot more control than he is. So we'll actually be digging into him a little bit more in the arc following. We have a Miles Morales crossover coming up. After that 3 issues, we sort of dive headfirst into some more Matt Murdock centric stuff. I don't want to give too much away, but
Of course.
yeah, you'll see a lot more of them.
Now, jumping back over to loose ends, I was surprised to see that one of the antagonists in the first issue is a Steve Smith fan. You know?
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. When we were making that comic, that was Chris's decision, and I was just kind of like, yeah, all right, because I mean, you know, that's definitely not my comment on Steve Smith.
Yeah, I know, because we were reading it.
There's plenty of assholes that would wear a Steve Smith jersey, no matter how I feel about Steve Smith.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, just go to a Waffle House on a Sunday morning.
yeah, right, exactly. You know, I mean, that's a thing. That's like a pet peeve of mine is in stories. I feel like there's certainly like an authorship you got to approach something with, where you put your own twist on it, like you make it your own. But it really bugs the shit out of me when I feel like people force characters to do things or wear things or speak a certain way that only reflects what they like. So that was one of the reasons why I was like, I'm cool with leaving that in there. Because even though I think the world of Steve Smith, like, that doesn't mean that there's not some jerk out there that hates him or that loves him that I would hate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, without giving the game away, we were reading it, and we were like, oh, of course, Steve Smith, the Carolina Panthers. And we get to it, and we're like, oh, shit.
Steve Smith!
I got to make that up to Smitty somehow. I'm happy to, you know, it sounds like, it always sounds like I'm name dropping, but he's just the center. I'm friends with Ryan Khalil. He's the center.
That's cool.
And so we've kind of made him into a character, like in Southern Bastards.
Well,
he gets name dropped a lot.
It's just funny. It just reminded me. I went to school, military school, with a guy named Jeff Otah who played for the Carolina Panthers for a while. So he was a classmate of mine for 2 years, and he was like the biggest motherfucker I've ever seen in my entire life.
You know who went to yours and Chris's school for a year though, guys? Ludacris.
Oh, Ludacris. Yeah, Ludacris
went
went to
to
Centerville High School for a year.
That's really weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Supposedly.
No. Lindsay Zarniak on ESPN went
really?
to Centerville High School as well, and she cornered him and was like, "Look, there's a fucking thing at Centerville High School. Like when you go to Centerville High School, there's a legend that Ludacris went there." And she like pulled him aside, and he's like, "Yeah, I went there for a year." And it like blew up Northern Virginia. We were like, "Holy shit!"
How did I miss that?
Yeah, it's all real, man.
Yeah.
All of it.
I remember like whenever like kids would bring that up at school, like someone would undoubtedly be like, "Yeah, well then why isn't 703 in the area code song?" It's like, fuck you.
Because he's trying to forget it.
Yeah, he's only here for a year. He's out of here. But yeah, you can look at the interview on YouTube, Chris.
Yeah, he doesn't have hoes in his hometown. He has women of stature.
Boom.
So yeah. That's my Carolina Panthers connection with Jeff Otah.
Well, my weirdest experience, it's been cool to get to know him he's a big comics fan, and sort of like geek culture fan, I guess you would call it. And he, so 2 years in a row, I've seen Star Wars movies with the Panthers.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a lot more exciting when they were on the Super Bowl team.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did?
But we went and saw Force Awakens last year, and then this year we went and saw Rogue One. And the first time I got to I went and ate with them and stuff beforehand, and that was pretty funny because I'm an adult. I'm a near 40-year-old man, right? So to me, I like this stuff. It's sports. But I know they're human beings. I don't really idolize these dudes like that. And it was funny to sit down. I admire them on some level, but I don't, idolize it. And it's funny to sit at a table with all these guys and realize, man, I'm 15 years older than these, guys.
Yeah.
MLB draft season's always rough. Seeing those kids, those fresh faced early 20-somethings, and you're just like, oh, I'm 10 years older than you.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when you create a player on Madden now and you put in your actual birth date, that player's dead. You know what I mean? They have no stats. They're terrible.
Right,
yeah, I remember back in the day when it was prime time, but now they're 30 and it's no, they have no stats and they should be retired.
Favre of Madden 2017.
Yeah, I guess. So.
When he's playing for the Jets.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But that's part of what being a sports fan is about. Is for some people, it's about projecting all their failures and frustrations into a game.
Their entire
for other people,
hey, we're Redskins fans, man.
About,
totally understand.
Yeah. Oh God. It's about.
We don't have a defensive squad anymore.
Yeah. For me, it's it's helped to have a hometown team that because I don't watch college football anymore. I just have huge problems with the way it's all set up, and it feels weird for me to watch 18-year-old kids and root for them like it's life or death.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just weird for me. It's a bigger problem for me when it becomes a little bit more like Crawl County, where it's people yelling about wanting to kill each other and how the other team sucks. And then when you ask them about football, they seem to really not know anything about football at all. It's just that football is an excuse to kill your neighbor. With that in mind, it's Clemson and Alabama in the national championship game. Yeah. Jason's a huge Alabama fan. And I was well, this book might be over because I have to pull for Clemson because I live in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I live in Charlotte, and I have to pull for the team whose fans live close enough to kill me. I'm not going to root against Clemson when one of them could burn my house down. So.
Well, thank God none of you guys are rooting for Ohio State. That's always been that's a whole story that I won't put on the air. Well, maybe I'll put it on the air someday.
Yeah.
But my contempt for the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
But
well, I don't like them either, so cool.
I have to ask, does Cam Newton dress as impeccably to Rogue One as he does for his post-game interviews?
Well, that's the thing is it was not the whole team. It was the offensive line, some of the defense. I don't know what Cam. It would have been amazing if Cam had showed up with a hat that looked like a stormtrooper helmet.
Yeah. Or I should have showed up as Jen Urso.
Yeah, right.
No, he'd be Director Krennic. He would show up like
Evil
Krennic.
He would
show
be
up
Krennic.
like Evil Liberace.
Yeah, he'd
totally.
be Krennic.
The geekiest thing that happened is when we all sat down. Luke Kuechly was in the front row, and everybody just started going, Luke.
Oh, that's the funniest shit.
Just trying to get him to use the Force to start the movie.
Oh, man.
I was very surprised how much they all loved it, though. As we were walking out. And I think that's a thing that when you're talking about breaking down barriers between cultures, it's we all live in a modern world, and it's why wouldn't 24-year-old, 25-year-old football players like geek stuff? They all go to the same movies as everybody else does. They all grow up with the internet. It's all blurred together. And when we were coming out of the movie, so many of those guys were just blown away. Just whoa, this is that movie was great. And I'm just over in the corner yeah, it was all right. So, it just is it's just an interesting little social experiment to be able to like move around in those worlds, because I feel like so often it would be like, oh, the football guy is the guy that throws you into the locker and like smashes your trapper keeper because you like Transformers, but it's really not always that way. That's not to say that it can't be that way, but it's changing a little bit.
Oh God, all the shit we took for Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers growing up.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah, well, I played football in high school, so I always felt a little weirdly like. I guess it wasn't that big of a deal. I never hid that I liked comics. I mean, everybody in school knew that I could draw, and like in fact, I would draw like at lunchtime for people. Like people would give me like 50 cents to draw like a Michael Jordan or something.
Nice.
So everybody knew I could draw, and everybody kind of, I guess, just assumed I liked comics. I would talk about it every now and then. But I also played sports, and I always felt like I was the only person in my high school that had any interest in any of that shit. So it didn't really, like I was like off to myself in that regard. So I guess I just kind of never felt like I was being harassed for it. It just felt like people were apathetic, But it was a little lonely to not be able to like say like, hey, X-Men is amazing. Like, let's sit down and let me tell you about this X-Men comic.
Yeah.
Like, people are hallucinating left and right and ripping their faces off. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
Wolverine just gave birth to a brood baby. It was hard to find people to talk about that kind of stuff with.
Yeah. I just wanted to talk about Terminator 2.
Terminator 2.
Hey, well.
I mean, I love Terminator 2.
I love Terminator 2. I love Terminator 1. I have mixed feelings about everything that came after. But all right, Jason, real quick lightning round before we ask the big thing that we ask everybody. But I just feel like these are a couple lightning round questions that you would enjoy. First off, Big Boy or Andre 3000?
Oh, well, it's going to feel like I'm going to go into this, and I'm going to tell you right now that, like, they're both amazing. Okay? So, like, take that as the caveat to this. But I'm a much bigger Andre 3000 fan. I think Big Boy gets overlooked by. Well, I guess it depends on what part of the spectrum your musical taste lands on. But to me, I think Andre, he just represents something that was at the time, especially like when they came together as a duo, was like, I think it's led to a lot of the change you've seen like in hip hop music, where it's become a lot more embracing of like other sounds and other like other approaches to life, So I think on that alone, I would give him the edge. But I also just like, he seems to be very like monkish with his wordplay, like as if he like sits in a room and really, really like pours over what he's gonna do. I think if you listen really closely, especially to his latter work, like the way he can twist a phrase, it's almost Bob Dylan-esque. It like goes, and it can go in 50, 60 different directions if you allow it to.
Because of that, would you put Outkast over, say, like the Wu-Tang Clan?
Oh, easily. But I'm from the South, man. This is all like kind of like if there's a thread through all this conversation, like some of it is just like being represented, And I think like that's the thing that like when people get on these tangents about like comics like changing, Captain America to a black man or having, Spider-Gwen, like, and they get upset about it and they just want it to be like the way that it used to be. It's like, well, take 2 seconds and think about what it would be like to be somebody that had never seen someone that looks or talks or sounds like them, like, as a hero. Because it's very easy for me to go to that place, and I'm a white guy. Because, like, for me, like, just seeing shit, you guys were talking about that Ludacris song. He says 704 in that song, and that's where I'm from. And when I was a kid, like, that was a big deal. And so, like, Outkast becoming this huge group and being from the South and sort of being contemporary to me, like, it's a very important group to me because I felt like I got to, like, they by virtue of their success and by virtue of them being a little weird, it validated, you know, my desire to do that. And I think that it's not hard for most people. I think, like, people who can't, like, find a window into that and allow for the fact that, you know, that's an important thing. I feel like I don't know how to reach those people. I don't know if it's possible to reach those people, but I think that's the strongest argument for why these things do need to occasionally change.
Well, it's interesting to kind of, I guess, make it heavy, hopefully not as heavy as we've gone, but like both Loose Ends and Southern Bastards, you've got characters that are simultaneously, there's a desire to break free, but a desire to kind of to put down roots and defend where they came from.
Absolutely. I think that's actually kind of a thing that is present. You know, like, there's not... See, like, pulp writers, if you look back through, like, literary stuff, and even if you look through, like, the finest of literature, quote unquote, or, you know, even, like, stuff that's the better pulp stuff, you see, like, a lot of re-exploration of themes. Like, people sort of, like, thinking through stuff again and again from different angles. And I think that that's pretty common, you know, in any form of art. And so, like, it's not surprising to me that I think I do it in my own. So I think that, like, it's the commonality between Southern Bastards, Loose Ends, this Black Cloud comic that's coming up, even Spider-Gwen. It's a lot of people wrestling with, like, what, you know, the circumstances they're in, the hopes that they want for things versus, like, you know, for the future versus, like, how much of the past is worth carrying forward, you know. I use the term existential a lot. I think I probably even overuse it. But to me, like, it's an endlessly fascinating thing to sort of examine who you've become versus who you, and what led you to be there versus, like, what you want to be.
The idealized self versus the actual self.
Yeah, and is there a you know, what is the operational definition of those two things, and at what point does one of those end and one of the other thing begin? You know?
Well, Jason, something that we ask everybody that comes on the show: what are you currently geeking out over?
Oh man, see, I've been in a work mode for like a month and a half, so this is going to be difficult. Let's see.
Werther's Originals is totally a viable answer.
Geeking out over, that's a very strong... Star Trek. I've been, like, listening to Star Trek The Next Generation for, like, a month. Because, you know, when you sit at a desk drawing, you have to fill your head with stuff. You know, like, this becomes a certain point when you've, like, thought through all the storytelling challenges, and you've done a lot of the heavy mental lifting, and then there's just a lot of mechanical, like, I gotta draw that hand. You know, like, it becomes that way. So, like, I try to find stuff that I can glom onto, and I had not watched Star Trek The Next Generation in, like, ages. It had been, you know, I grew up watching it with my family, and I always think that's so weird because my dad, I've only seen my dad ever read one book cover to cover, and it was about snipers. Like, he is not the kind of guy that likes science fiction. And I actually went to the set of the Outcast, you know, the TV show Outcast.
Oh yeah.
I went to the set because they shoot it not far from here, and I'm good friends with Paul and Robert, and I went to the Robert and Paul invited me to the set, and I went to the set, and Dave, the guy that played Brent Spiner that played Data, was like on the set, you know, because he's on the show. And I'm standing there talking to Kirkman, and he walks over, and I guess it was the first time they'd ever met, and they have, like, you know, 15-minute conversation, and eventually Robert's like, oh, hey, this is Jason, he's a comic book artist. And I don't really know what to say to Data.
Tell him that his magnum opus is the sequel to Independence Day.
Yeah, right. So I said, man, Yeah, when I was a kid, we watched your show, and I don't even know why. And I didn't mean it like, it's terrible. I don't know why we watched it. But I was like, yeah, we watched your show, and I had no idea why we watched your show. And then I didn't have time to go back in and go like, oh, well, yeah, my dad,
Snipers. And,
yeah. So I started on season 3, and I'm about like halfway through season 5, and I'm fascinated with this show because I can't figure out if it's really great or if it's really terrible.
You skipped, if you started season 3, you skipped like the shit, like the weakest the show ever was. Those first 2 seasons.
Well, that's why I skipped it, is that people told me that the first 2 seasons are just garbage. So they said everybody was like, start with season 3. So I was like, okay. I looked it up on Wikipedia. I was like, oh, the board shows up. Like, I'm in. Like, let's do this.
There is one.
Just
Well, I have this question about Next Generation. So many episodes in Next Generation, and to a lesser degree, like Deep Space Nine and Voyager, have to do with like the holodeck just completely going fucking bonkers. If there's something that dangerous on like a confined space, why do you have like multiple of those all the time?
I like how often people just wake up and they're like, I don't remember who I am. It's like every 3rd episode where like Riker's waking up with a new nose, and he's like in some lady's bed, and I just hate Riker. Like I just really, really, really hate Riker. And like it's like every time you think Riker can't get worse, it's like, oh, now he plays jazz piano. It's like, Jesus Christ.
The worst talent to have, apparently.
Yeah. It's like there's times where they realize, like, there's times, and it's not like everybody on the show's a bad actor, but there's times that it's just like there's community theater level shit going on, like bad community theater. And then you got, like, Captain Picard over in the corner, just like Patrick Stewart, just like, I'm a fucking knight. like I was knighted by the fucking queen. I have to like make this work. And he's just like acting his fucking ass off. And there's a whole episode where he mind melds with
Sarek.
Yeah, and they just like spend like 10 minutes where they're like, all right, we promised Patrick that we would like put the camera on him and let him just act his ass off for 10 minutes of this show. And it's just him going like, Mama!
It's glorious.
It is.
There's a moment.
Great.
There's a moment watching like Star Trek Generations where he like in the beginning of the movie when he finds out his brother and nephew have died in that fire back in France, when he's telling Troy and he like breaks down. There's like a moment in what's her name, like Marina Sirtis's face, where she's like, "Did his like family actually die?" He's acting that well.
Yeah. Well, I heard the whole plan is that they weren't sure that they could sell kind of like a captain who was not Kirk, and so the whole plan was originally conceived as like he might die, and they promote Riker like to be the captain. And I guess they just got Patrick Stewart on set and were like, this guy's the show.
Just turned him loose.
We can't kill him. He's the only one with talent. Yeah. The rest of the ship combined doesn't have as much talent as him.
Twice a season, we have to have him on the holodeck quoting Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing, is that like when they go back on the holodeck, is it always like just boring? Like what? Not that like Sherlock Holmes or Cowboys are boring, but it's like they could make it be anything. There should have been like shit where they were like, we're going to a fucking Kiss concert or something.
Oh man, I would have been a Star Trek fan for life then.
Yeah, Destroyer.
Well, I guess that's why in First Contact they have the the gangster
I don't even
scene.
like Kiss. I don't know why I said a Kiss concert. I just thought like that would be funny.
That would be great.
It would be great. Kiss would be down for it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I just watched the one where like it's a Western where like Worf's the best character. I'm just gonna say that like hands down. Worf's the best character because it's like they took Wolverine and just neutered him, and it's like he's just standing there like ready to rip everybody's face off like all the time, and I just have so much like Worf fan fiction building up in me. It's just like I gotta think that there's got to be like a whole season we never saw that was just like Picard going like, all right, it's Black Ops time.
Who owns the comic rights for
IDW?
Yeah, IDW.
Yeah,
Jason Latour. Come on.
Oh yeah, that'd be
I
great.
want to do. I said on Twitter I want to do like a comic called Away Team. That's just like I want to do my basketball comic, which is like because I was like, well, how do I do a basketball comic? Because I'm doing a football comic, so I want to do a basketball comic that's not necessarily a basketball comic that just has basketball. That's the premise. So I get to draw people dunking and stuff. And I was like, they'll just call it Away Team. It would be Star Trek, but they play basketball. They're taking basketball to other
on the holodeck.
to other cultures.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, they're just trapped in the holodeck. And they have to like.
We
got to
pass the time somehow.
There is an episode that's coming up, since we're in the middle of season 5, it's a little down the line, where the cold open is Worf's birthday, and I will say no more and leave you to it.
Oh my.
Hey,
goodness.
what's his name? The Howlin' Mad Murdoch, the character he plays.
Oh, Reginald Barclay?
Man, I would kick that guy into a house fire. Like I hate that character. That character is the worst. Like swarmy. Like
Is it because he creates holodeck programs with like all the female like members of
Yes.
the crew?
yes,
Oh,
he is
God,
the
that
creepiest creep of all the creeps. Like he's such a creep that they used his creepiness to explain how Geordi wasn't a creep by creating doing the same thing. You know, I just feel like that show is crazy on that level because on some ways it's so progressive in the sense that like there's a lot of like the women on the show like all have roles and they all do things and it's like it's different than a lot of shows of the era in that way. But on the other hand, they force sex on that show so much. Like, it's like they're just trying to get, I guess they were trying to get ratings or something. And it's just like, for no reason, they're like doing hot yoga. Like in the.
Yeah.
Well, it's the
really.
Yeah, Dr. Crusher and Troy just working out. Like just doing aerobics like randomly in the middle of a hallway, like not even on the holodeck. They're just sitting out in the open with their like 80s workout tights.
Yeah, the perms, everything.
Oh god,
and
full
it's
makeup
such a
too.
Stereotypical like 90s or like you know like 80s 90s nerd writing of like a guy that, like whenever they do the sex stuff, whenever they do that kind of stuff, it's just. It seems so like the gaze is like on laser focus, you know.
Well,
phaser focus, actually.
I don't know if you ever saw Gene Roddenberry's like notes for the show. He wanted Troy to be a 6-breasted alien woman, and like Majel Barrett, whoever plays Deanna Troy's mom, Laxwana Troy, Majel Barrett, who was married to him, talked him down. Was like, no, we can't have a 6-breasted alien woman be the counselor of the Enterprise.
Yeah, that's weird. So anyway, that's what I'm geeking out on. Is I'm having a love-hate wrestling match with like the Star Trek I've been listening to, and
right on.
It's a pretty weird experience to like go through it all these years later. Sure. I will say that I do think that it is pretty good. For you know, I figured out through the process of this though that like it's just such an investment to become a fan of it. Because like you kind of have to sit through a lot of stuff that's not so good, you know. It's got a lot of ups and downs, and I think that like it's like anything else. Like the more time and effort you put into it, is what makes you sort of bond with it, or rebel against it. Whereas like Star Trek, you go to see Star Wars is like it's a people like that because it's like such an event, you know. Like you get together, and the other thing is the clothes. Like in Star Wars, everybody has awesome clothes, but in Star Trek, they just look like ridiculous. Like they're wearing like pantyhose, like all the time.
Everything's a onesie.
Like that's a big difference.
Yeah, pantyhose.
There's that one time where Picard goes to the pleasure planet and he's like wearing like
God.
this like open bathrobe mankini thing. That's the show.
I'm gonna throw this out there, and then we can spike the football on this. Yep. But that's one of the reasons why people don't like the Star Wars prequels, because it's like them clothes looked cool when it was Obi-Wan Kenobi, but now everybody dresses like that, and that's just weird. It's just a bunch of
That's
weird.
the one singular reason.
Well, that and it should have been a huge red flag to the Jedi Council that Anakin was only wearing like black. Everyone else is wearing all the Jedi stuff. And he's just like, I'm gonna fucking wear this.
Oh,
I'm
no,
gonna
it's
fucking
fine.
wear this.
It's fine. He's going through his goth Jedi phase.
Yeah, I thought they were just being good parents.
We'll let him grow out of it.
He'll make his own mistakes.
He's doing it just to rebel.
Yeah.
Get it, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, it hasn't happened yet.
He's just a limbless corpse.
Yeah.
But Jason, so other than Loose Ends, which again will be in comic book shops everywhere and on Comixology on Wednesday, January 25th, and the Return of Southern Bastards and Spider-Gwen and April's upcoming Black Cloud, is there anything else you'd like to promote?
No, there's, that's so much. Yeah.
Not even like KFC or anything.
No, remember.
No, he doesn't actually eat there. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Okay. This is going to sound like the most off-the-wall request, and you don't have to honor this by any stretch of the imagination. But because of the Queen song "One Vision," at the very end of that song, Freddie Mercury randomly shouts the words "fried chicken," and that's kind of how we've taken out the last several episodes. And being somebody that playfully enjoys the legacy of Colonel Harlan Sanders, could you maybe close us out with a rousing declaration of fried chicken?
Sure. It makes me want to go like full Dave Chappelle with it.
Go for it.
Fried chicken!
Oh, it's perfect.
Excellent. All right, man. Well,
that's gonna be the only like centuries from now. There'll be a bunch of people dressed like Star Trek, and they will
in pantyhose.
Find it'll be and they'll get like a radio wave. They're like, sir, there's a strange radio wave from an ancient civilization that we seem to have found, and it'll just be that fried chicken.
So who was this Jason Latour of the early 2000s? Well, he loved fried chicken. How do you know that? He yelled at
Chaco in the walls fell.
There's a hieroglyphics dedicated to deep fried poultry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
But. Well, Jason, thanks again for coming on the show, and again to all our listeners.
I'm glad it ended a lot lighter than it began.
Yeah, I definitely kind of started. I didn't mean to start with the heavy, somber let's talk about your childhood.
Yeah, it's all good.
But thanks again, and
thanks for having me.
Loose Ends will be out on January 25th. Jason, thanks again.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
If that old dirty bastard intro to the episode taught me anything, Sam, is that, oh, baby, you like it raw.
Oh, baby, I like it raw. Oh, baby. I always imagine the WV frog with the top hat and the cane singing that.
I think that was the inspiration.
Old Dirty was like this.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for.
Whenever I see this frog guy, I remember that I like it raw.
Yeah. And that he wants to go to Six Flags.
Yeah.
But don't we all? Mm. Actually, I've never actually been to fucking Six Flags.
No?
It's cool.
It's an amusement park.
Yeah,
okay.
It's cool. It's cool.
All right.
I was always partial to King's Dominion.
I've only ever been to King's Dominion once, and I was 5. Yeah.
My family used to get season passes every summer.
We should take a geek out excursion.
We should.
I've been wanting to get...
Which one's closer, though? Is
King's Dominion.
King's Dominion is? Because isn't Six Flags
Well, there's a Six Flags in Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
But I don't know how... I honestly don't know. I feel like, if anything, they're about the same.
Okay. I mean, either one. They're
same
both
time,
cool.
at least.
King's Dominion's got Indiana Jones vibes.
Now I'm going to look it up. You guys keep talking.
So, Golden Globes, eh?
Oh, God. Yeah, I watched what I could. What was I excited about besides seeing Stallone and Carl
La La Land
Weathers?
Sweep.
La La Land did a lot of, I saw some people. I feel like, and this is
Personally.
Personally, this happens all the time, so I shouldn't be that whatever shocked. But a bunch of people have my friends I've seen on Facebook have watched La La Land since it's getting all the awards, and they're like, "What the fuck is? Who cares? Who cares?" Like there's this like backlash now that it's winning all these awards.
Well, they can think they know better. They can.
Real quick, Six Flags in Bowie, Maryland. Sorry, not Chevy Chase, although I'm pretty sure they're like right next to each other. Is only about an hour away from us here in the studio right now. It's 36 miles away, whereas Kings Dominion takes about 2-ish hours to get to.
I think that was the last park I went to. My brother and sister and I.
It's just before.
It's just before Richmond.
Yeah, it's between Richmond and Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
We should do that sometime.
We should. I would much rather go to Kings Dominion.
Yeah, no,
Just
Kings
throwing
Dominion.
that out there.
It's a nicer. Yeah,
It's the Virginia amusement park.
yeah.
That's not Busch Gardens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's like 3
I mean,
Busch
yeah.
Gardens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what else was? I mean, I was very glad to see Emma Stone win. You know, I think she was astounding. I mean, but the dream would have been Haley Steinfeld because I think she did such a great job in Edge of 17. But Emma Stone, I mean, her performance, fuck workhorse in that movie, man.
I was kind of bummed that Hell or High Water didn't get anything.
Yeah, and you know, it was nice seeing Pierce Brosnan introduce Sing Street. It just made me want to watch it again because, god damn, that movie's so good.
Still on Netflix.
It should
As if it
forever
would have
stay.
already been taken off.
Yeah. No, now you see it for money. What else? I mean, honestly, I didn't watch as much as I wanted to. You know, I was too busy.
I saw highlights.
Licking my wounds of the Giants getting their shit kicked.
Welcome to the postseason.
Well, I mean, you know, the last time they were in the fucking playoffs playing the Packers, they went on to win the Super Bowl twice.
Deadpool and Spider-Man kissed. Huh?
Yeah,
I saw
showed it to
that.
Emma Stone, which is funny because they dated. Yeah, Ryan Gosling gave her. I did see Ryan Gosling's acceptance speech. That was fucking like class. That was like how you do an acceptance speech. Very
classy guy.
Very. Oh, dude, he's the best. He looked like James Bond too.
Yeah.
He could pull that shit off.
He could.
I
would see it 5 times.
Yeah.
Gauze for Bond.
Yeah.
Hashtag it.
But yeah. I don't remember. I didn't really watch much. You know, there was just little things. Like I said, the big thing I saw was Carl Weathers and Stallone fist bump and say ain't gonna be no rematch. He goes, don't want a ball. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And then it brought up wounds that he won the Golden Globe but lost the Oscar.
Yeah.
And I immediately
to Mark Rylance.
I immediately watched him winning the Golden Globe after that. I was at work.
Yeah.
And I pulled it up on YouTube, and I fucking rolled a tear because it's that moment where they go, and the Golden Globe goes to, it's Patricia Arquette, I can't remember who else, Sylvester Stallone, and they play the Rocky theme, and everyone fucking jumps to their feet. Everyone jumps to their feet, and it's like a scene from fucking Rocky. It was that was so fucking wonderful. Yeah. Only thing missing was I didn't thank Adrian. He said, "Yo, Adrian, I did it at the end." That would have been beautiful. I was like, "Oh, he's saving that for the Oscar."
Yeah.
Whatever.
As history shows.
Creed. What a great movie, Creed. I hope they make it 2.
I know
Ryan Coogler's got Black Panther. He's working on.
Yeah.
And that seems to be adding just more and more awesome people every day.
Yeah.
Which I can't wait. I know I've probably asked this before in here, but is Tessa Thompson going to be a Black Panther?
No, she's in...
Thor,
yeah,
right?
She's in Thor Ragnarok. She's Valkyrie. Yeah. What you didn't see at home is, a victorious
gesture.
Yeah. Victorious motion from Mr. Bozick.
Yeah, I love Tessa Thompson.
Yeah. But yeah, you guys getting anything, New Year's, all that? Because we haven't really recapped New Year's. I guess you guys worked, or you worked and you saw Ghostbusters 2.
Indeed, I did see Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah. Cool.
And I have a story to share from that.
Oh, well, this is a podcast?
Is it? So I went to go see Ghostbusters 2, which... for anyone who knows, I'm a big Ghostbusters fan. Or I guess anyone who doesn't know, I'm a big Ghostbusters fan. And I've always joked about wanting to watch Ghostbusters 2 on New Year's because it is a New Year's movie. The climax of the movie takes place at the stroke of midnight on New Year's that particular year. And so the Alamo Drafthouse was showing it for New Year's. So I was like, cool, let's do this. Got a couple friends together. And we went to watch it, and the way that they had timed it was that the movie would end at about 11:30, just in case the people that were in the movie wanted to go quickly and watch the ball drop somewhere. I hadn't really planned to because I'm not huge on New Year's, but like I was like, well, since we have the chance, let's go to the bar and like take a drink and kind of make noise. And there, the bar inside the Alamo Drafthouse was closed already, much to our surprise. Like, really? On New Year's? But I guess, they didn't have anyone there. So we were like, all right, fine. There's a couple bars in the parking lot. We go around. There's like 6 bars in the shopping center that the Alamo Drafthouse is in, and only 2 of them are open. And like, just made no sense to us. We were like, this is like probably one of the biggest, bar nights ever, and none of these places are open. And the 2 places that are packed to the gills. So we just kind of wormed our way into World of Beer to get to the bartender's attention. We finally get our drinks like right at like 11:58. So we're like, okay, cool, sip, and then they're passing out free champagne to everyone who's there. And we're cool, take a drink right at midnight. And then it happened, and we just kind of waited about half an hour to make sure it was okay to drive and went home.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah, right. What a wonderful story. I just wasted everyone's
Very
5 minutes.
Very
responsible. Right. Nothing exciting happened. It was just more so mind-boggling that bars weren't open.
That is surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. Take that one, Loudon.
Calling you out, taking you to task.
Yeah.
Fight
me.
Yeah.
You don't even know how to plow your parking lots. Got him.
Did you guys have any trouble with the snow this week?
No.
Getting to work at one point was a little dicey just because it's kind of hilly here, and getting up the hill was a little icy. And I was worried about driving home at like midnight that night when it was 15 degrees outside and icy. But they did a really good job at Fergus County Parkway. So I was very lucky because it was a breeze, going back and forth.
On Saturday, I did go up to MagFest, which is done at the National Harbor here. In the right there in Maryland, and that was the morning that it snowed. So like my street right here was fairly untouched, so it was a little difficult to get out to the main roads, just because, like Jake, it's quite hilly. It's pretty much just an incline all the way up. You guys know. But once I got onto main roads, it was fine until I got like past Fairfax, because Fairfax is really good about plowing and salting real quick, but like Burke and Annandale were a little bit slower, so it got a little bit thicker there. But like the real problem wasn't the snow as much as it was the other drivers who were just like, I don't know how to drive in the snow, and I'm like, it snows every year. How do you not know? So I'm sitting there in my little Kia Soul that is not built to drive in snow, driving circles around these people because I know how to handle myself. And then, like, there's guys in SUVs that I'm passing because they are just sitting there like, oh, I'd use this as a minivan to carry my kids to soccer practice.
Ah, yes, the fabled soccer practice.
Many moons.
Yeah, many moons.
But MagFest was fun.
Yeah, the big video game convention for all you out of the area that's held at National Harbor, just right across the other side of the Potomac in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
I've never actually been.
I went there in an accident once.
It's nice because it's in the Gaylord Hotel, which is so it's a big hotel / convention center. So half the stuff there you don't even need to actually buy the badge for, because it's like they have their dealers rooms. Arcades. And they have arcade rooms. Those are blocked off to only badge holders. But some of the other smaller rooms, like panels, and one of the rooms that I went through was this like museum of old tech video game stuff. A lot of old computer systems running, like Windows 3.1, and they had like an Atari and a Commodore 64, and like really even stuff that I didn't recognize, because it was
television,
probably. But like, so just you walk from one end of the room to the other, and it's like 1970s to like early 2000s. Just one computer after another is the next generation. And I was with friend of the show Ken, my co-host on Laserdix, and he's a huge fan of Commander Keen, which is one of those like old like in the days of DOS, type games, and he was dressed up as Commander Keen, and he found a computer that had Commander Keen, so he was playing it, and he was like, "Oh, I'm happier than a pig in shit." And I took a cute picture of Commander Keen playing Commander Keen. That was cute, and that was something that you could do without a pass.
Don't have time to play with myself.
Ooh. And then I ran into a bunch of people that I haven't seen since I was living up in New York.
Right.
That was fun.
They all came down?
Yeah. It's apparently, like, I hadn't really heard of the convention until a couple years ago, and then this was the first year that I ever went. Apparently it's pretty popular amongst East Coast gaming community kids, and also the M in MAG is music. It's music and gaming fest. So apparently there's also a big like indie music scene there that I still don't really know much about, because all of that stuff was badge holders only.
Yeah, so it's like South by Southwest.
Yeah,
except instead of film, it's video games, but the music is present in both.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then the snow wasn't a problem coming back home.
Right. So, I think over this weekend I came to the realization, or I think I always knew, but now that I'm a little more honest with myself, my favorite film of all time is Field of Dreams.
I feel like I've heard you mention at the very least that it's definitely up there before, so it comes as no big shock that you're officially naming it number one.
It was always hard for me to narrow it down, but I was like, you know what? There's no movie that makes me feel the way that Field of Dreams does.
Mm-hmm.
It really, it's the winner.
Have you ever read the book or short story?
Shawless Joe.
Shawless Joe. Jowless Joe.
Shoeless Joe by W.P. Kinsella.
The Joe with no show.
I kind of don't want to, if that makes, because I've watched the film so much and had it so ingrained. I know that you read The Natural in addition to reading The Natural.
Oh, but yeah, The Natural, I mean, the end is totally different.
Yeah, where he punches a dude so hard he shits.
He shits himself. Oh, also, he strikes out.
Right.
He doesn't hit the home run. They don't give him that moment. And that's what they say, it ain't so, Roy. He goes, boo, and he sits down, he breaks into tears. That's how the book ends. It's, it's like if Darth Vader watched Luke die in the novelization. That's basically, and then Luke shit his pants. That's basically the novelization of Return of the Jedi. But no, Field of Dreams, man. I mean, that's great. I think the short story is called like Shoeless Joe Comes to Iowa, and then they made the book, and then Ray Liotta found out he was playing Shoeless Joe, and he's like, "Fuck yeah, I'm playing the title character," and they changed the title to Field of Dreams. But I mean, the book is I'm more familiar with the short story, but it's the magic is all there because Kinsella, the writer, is a fucking genius. I think he actually passed away recently, which is a shame because that guy thought outside the box and wrote some of the most whimsical, wonderful baseball stories of all time. But it's good, man. I mean, like I said, I totally get where you're coming from with not wanting to read it, but I can tell you, it's not a natural. It's not like the Natural book
Versus
and movie.
The Natural.
No.
Okay, maybe I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I'm sure we got like 5 copies at the house. I could let you borrow one, but and you could probably finish in like a day. But maybe just read the short story.
Maybe.
Well, it's more about just Shoeless Joe. Getting his second shot, and then it kind of takes a back seat to in the movie with the fathers and sons and baseball and all that kind of stuff. But it's been a while since I watched Field of Dreams. It's one of those movies it's like The Natural, that anytime The Natural is on, if my dad and I are watching it, we will stop the movie and just start watching it on DVD. And that actually happened recently. I came home from work, and we just watched The Natural because it was on TV. And Field of Dreams is like a perfect like movie magic.
It is. Some people are like schmaltzy. I'm like, fuck you, and then I like break both of their testicles.
Break them. Oh,
yeah.
Shit. Crack them over a fucking.
Yeah. This is your testicles on Dreams.
Yeah.
Any questions?
But yeah, so it's my favorite.
Yeah, that's good. Was it? Did you watch it recently and you're like, yeah, or did you just think about it? You're like, yeah.
I saw it. I watched. This is gonna sound
baseball.
Ray. I watched it on Saturday, and a friend asked me on Facebook today why it was my favorite, and so I sat down and watched it again and wrote something to him at the same time. So I wept like a crazy person twice within a week's time.
Is it just the end that you weep, or do you weep through the whole movie?
Not the whole movie, otherwise I would be a dehydrated mess.
Mm-hmm. E.T., that's me.
Yeah. But there's 2 scenes at the end of the film that will make me tear up, or at the very least choke up every time. And I'm starting to kind of choke up just thinking about them. But I can do this because I'm a man.
And a consummate professional.
Yes, the first Manaconda right here. The first scene is when Doc saves Karen, saves Ray Kinsella's daughter.
Choking on a hot dog.
Yeah, he essentially gives up heaven to save one more life.
Mm-hmm. Well, he gives up that hit. He never gets that hit. You know, he gets
he gets the hit.
He gets the sacrifice.
Oh, that's right. Which kind of foreshadows what happens to him.
Yeah, you know. But the great thing about that movie, understanding baseball, is the sacrifice is just as important as a base hit. You know.
And he still got to wink at the pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
And almost got his head drilled off
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. It's Shoeless Joe's like, hey, he likes if you wink at him. And he's like,
Well, no. His thing was like, his wish was, I never had an at bat. I would have liked to have, just as the pitcher's winding up, wink at him to make him think that I know something he doesn't. And so he does it, and the dude
here's your fucking fastball.
Yeah. So that, and of course, you know, when Kevin Costner realizes that he can't play in the Field of Dreams anymore, that he's basically given up heaven, he's like, I'm so sorry. And he's just like Burt Lancaster in his final movie performance. He's just like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, it's all right.
I got to live.
Yeah.
This is heaven.
I better get home. Alicia might thinks I've got, you know, another woman.
Yeah.
And winks, and, you know, Ray Liotta shouts, hey, rookie, you were good.
Yeah.
And then just that last look as he fades away into the corn.
Moonlight Graham.
Haven't heard that name in 50 years.
Yeah, that's classic.
Starting to think that I have no idea what this movie's actually about.
Yeah, you should probably watch it.
I know. You gave me the Laserdisc for my birthday.
You know,
I still haven't watched it.
they used to play baseball there. They'd have a thing every year.
The field is still there.
The field is still there, but I don't think they do the event anymore.
Oh.
I don't know why. Maybe they do, but I just thought I heard that they don't do it anymore. But we used to have a big poster in my basement of that, and it had just
Kevin Costner?
No, there was no Kevin Costner. It was just the field.
Oh, I thought it was a movie poster.
Yeah. No. So the poster of the actual field is this heaven notes.
Right.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
Well, the score.
Oh, yeah.
The score is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, James
too.
Horner, fantastic score. You know, that gets me in the, not the mood, but it hits me where I live.
Yeah, you know, James Horner was a master. You know,
in the testicles.
Yeah, that's what shatters mine. That's my testicles on Dreams right there. But the
and he watches it intentionally.
Yeah,
just to feel like a man again.
Yeah. The second scene is, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's like at the very end of the movie where you find out that John Kinsella is there.
Yeah,
and
if you build it, he will come. You know, it's not Shoeless Joe.
It was you.
Yeah.
No, Ray. It was you.
And I remember like he whispers, and I'm like, how the fuck does he hear this shit?
Because he's so far away at that point. But yeah,
the magic of baseball.
But it's I'm crying happy tears at that point because
sure, yeah. I mean,
he gets the second chance.
What's more, you know, Americana than that? You know, like so much of my early years, I can timeline events of playing catch. You know, that was like the holy of holies for me and my dad.
Like going to church,
you know. And I remember we were talking about this earlier, and it made me realize I remember the last time I played catch with my dad, and it was something where my dad played football more than he played baseball. He's a lifelong baseball fan, but he played football all the way up through college. And you know, of course, my brother and I played baseball. You know, I played through during the high school years up to there, and my brother played through college. And so it was always a thing. Whenever the Bozick brothers were in town, we'd always play catch. My dad would spray paint home plate, and he'd walk the paces for the pitcher's mound, spray paint pitcher's mound. And he'd have all the little shit there, and we play. And my dad, he had this like really bad, like I don't know if it's not even arthritis, but this hand thing where his hand would cramp up from a football injury. And so it started happening where he couldn't throw a baseball anymore, and like his hand would cramp. And at first he's like, look at this, isn't this crazy? And then I remember this is fucking probably years ago now, and I went up to him and I was like, do you want to play catch? And he looked at me like, what? Like this crazy look in his face, like what? Because it had been so long. I had stopped playing baseball for almost a decade probably at that point, and we still have our gloves and all that stuff. I think he probably still has the rubber band around with the ball in there. And we went out and we played for like maybe just a couple minutes, and the ball just started like flopping out of his hand. He couldn't do it, and it was one of those moments where we kind of looked at each other like, this is probably the last time we're ever going to play catch. But at the same time, we had the thing in the back of our mind where we're like, but there's always one more chance. Like we could always play one more time, like just a couple of times here and there. But I remember like distinctly one of my earliest memories is him in the backyard, like throwing a pop fly, and I would drop every single one. I couldn't fucking catch it, and then I finally caught it, and he fucking ran inside. Marge, he caught the pop fly, and I remember also like he was the kind of guy that like I'd play center field. They'd put the fucking dummy in the outfield, the t-ball. Someone hit a pop fly, and your whole life is flying towards you, and you're like, if I drop this, it's over. There's no fucking point in walking back there. I just disappear into the thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember
like Burt Lancaster.
Yeah, just walk back.
But yeah. I mean, get the fuck out of here, you disappointment. And no, I remember catching the pop fly. Both hands, and just poof, and it was just like this, like, oh, and you're just going, yeah.
Always that moment right before you catch a pop fly where you're like, I could just drop it. like this might not actually happen.
It was a sweet moment. Like the most recent anything I did was I did a softball league for a past job I worked for, like an employee league, which was a lot of fun. And I was never that great at baseball, but like we were playing softball, and my dad just like, hey, I'm gonna come watch you play softball. And it was the best I ever played in my entire life, like that thing. We went to Glory Days afterwards. And the Glory Days we always go to is the Glory Days we used to go to after every Little League majors thing ever, because one of the co-owners who bought into it was our assistant coach. And so they'd put our games up on the big screen and make fucking everyone watch it in the restaurant. Like, look at these Little Leaguers. Look at these fuckers. But yeah, I mean, that's forever going to be one of those just great moments. And, some people will never get it. That's not like a thing like, oh, you'll never. It's just some people it's playing catch wasn't a thing, but it's something that like that'll strike me forever and ever. And probably more bittersweet as time goes on than it used to.
Are you more of a baseball guy than a football guy?
Yeah, I mean, I played 1 year of football, 1.5 sacks, undefeated. But
you gotta stay,
dude.
Go out on top.
I still I retired afterwards.
Yeah.
I got just hold the helmet, yeah. But we were the Colts. But I remember I had a mullet too. But I will never forget. I remember the last play of my football career was a sack. I was a linebacker because I'm a fucking beast.
Yeah,
I mean, look at this fucking stud.
Put me to shame.
Yeah. I did have the fucking full face mask. I wanted the fucking most badass fucking face mask, and and I remember I went and I wrapped my hands around the quarterback and I hit him, and I could feel his pads and jersey hit me in the face to the face mask, and I was like, this is manhood. And it fucking like in reality it was probably just like two fucking idiots going and they both fell over because the force just knocked them. And my mom went, yeah, knocked my brother off the bleachers. I told that story at his wedding, which we have on video, which is the wedding and also him getting knocked off the bleachers. But no, baseball was something like forever and ever. The first time I ever saw The End of the Natural was in a baseball park. They played it on the big screen, and that was fucking amazing.
Baseball marks the time.
Yeah,
it's
we should go to a baseball game.
I would love to go to a baseball game. Mm-hmm. Please, God, let's go to a baseball.
The Nats do like $5 seats, like
on Mondays and stuff. Yeah,
like, I mean they're like nosebleeds, but it's baseball.
Well, the great thing about Nats Park is you buy your tickets for cheap and you never go to your seats.
Yeah.
You just stand. If it's going to be cold as shit, on certain days. Yeah. We just walk around.
Yeah.
Bench Chili Bowl.
Take it. Oh God, yeah. I get those half smokes.
Oh, yeah.
And like all the bars have like, quote unquote outdoor seating, like the bars inside the park or the restaurants inside the park. They all have like out, seating where you can just watch the game.
Yeah. Well, they have a 45-minute limit.
They?
Yeah. Because otherwise you just sit out there and be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Give me a fucking nacho.
Yeah.
Give me a nacho. Give him a goddamn bench chili bowl. They're like, sir, you don't serve bench chili bowl here. Give him a 20. Give him a fucking chili bowl.
I'm not going to leave the park and go several blocks.
Yeah. No, they have one in the fucking...
Oh, do they?
They have like two.
Do they have two?
Yeah,
Shit.
man.
I'm going to hit both of them up. Be like, look at my bench chili bowl. The problem is
they have a Shake Shack, too.
I'm so excited for... That's cool. It's no bench chili bowl. I'm so excited.
Shakes.
They got shakes, man.
And Shacks.
My favorite. The thing that only bums me out about bench chili bowl is I'll get it and then I eat it before I ever like sit. You know, I'm like, oh yeah.
Well, I always get.
Oh yeah.
I double fist, man. I get 2 original half smokes.
That's a smart idea.
That way, I only eat one of those shits on the way back to my seat.
And then
Tops.
you shit one of those shits.
Oh, they both.
Have you ever caught a foul ball?
No, I got really close one time, and I was like, "This is coming down really fucking hard."
Yeah. When you hear,
I could drop it.
Yeah, I could be on ESPN highlights for all the wrong reasons.
Not top 10 on Friday.
Yeah. The jeer list.
Yeah. It's like a curse with our family. We cannot we would go with our little league and stuff, and like they would without us normally one of the coaches and his kids. They'd catch 2 balls like every year, you know, just this, and it's great. And they're like, all right, and I remember we're driving to the game. They're like, the first ball we catch, give it to the Boziks. Has never got one. And we sat there and we fucking shut them out. Nothing came even close.
Yeah. You're like the cooler.
Yeah,
you cool people's winning streaks.
Yeah, no, we do. Yeah,
the Nolan luck is that not catching foul balls, but the home team wins. So typically. No matter what sporting event we go to, if we're going, the home team wins.
Okay, so you should have told me this, so we could have gone to Lambeau Field.
Yeah,
no, I'm sorry, not Lambeau Field. That already fucking happened. No, the next. I want to go to see the Orioles again because I love Camden Yards. That's my favorite. That's my. That's one of my
I
favorites.
haven't been to Camden Yards since the Nationals opened up.
It's so fucking good. I mean, it's actually we go to a game that isn't like prime time, big time. Like, don't go when the Yankees are in town. Don't go when the Sox are in town. Go when the fucking Blue Jays. No, the Blue Jays aren't bad. But anyway, so they don't jack the tickets up, and it's only like a 40-minute drive.
Yeah.
You know, because back in the day, my dad.
It's easier to get there than to get to Six Flags.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, my dad is the kind of guy, he wanted to get there before the gates open for batting practice, and we'd leave with enough time. We'd get there in the 3rd inning because he'd be so backed up. Because that was the only ticket in town, man.
Yeah.
The last time I was at a Orioles game, it was a playoff game against the Yankees with CC Sabathia pitching, and I want to say it was 2014, and as history shows, the Orioles did not advance.
I feel like the last time I was at an Orioles game, Cal Ripken was still on the team.
Oh.
Yeah.
So 2002?
Probably.
No,
no,
98?
I'm pretty
90s,
sure 90 something.
Yeah, 98, I want to say.
That sounds maybe right.
We saw his last
the
Wednesday
Nats
game
have been
ever.
here since, 2005?
4?
Yeah. So it was definitely... it wasn't even... we hadn't moved here yet, and we moved here in 2000. So we were still in Springfield.
2 of my all-time favorite baseball teams of all time are the 96 Orioles and the 98 Orioles. Those were like my...
Brady Anderson.
Brady. The Batman. He fucking hit 50 home runs in one year. I mean, Jesus Christ.
B.J. Surhoff.
B.J. Sir. Eric Davis. Fucking, oh, dude.
Was Mike Messina pitching,
Mike
or had he
Messina.
already gone to
the Moose.
Yankees?
No, the Moose was the Moose, man. And I remember I would listen to the games on the radio in my room, and so many times you get close to pitching a perfect game, or so many times you get close to pitching a no-hitter. But yeah, Mike Bordick.
Yeah.
I mean, Rafael. I mean, rest in peace, Rafael Palmeiro's career. But he was my favorite. He was my fucking hero as a kid.
Oh yeah, it was so
and then
heartbreaking watching
no
that happen.
steroids. Period. And I'm like, you're over. Period. I had his rookie card. I had
Albert Bell.
yeah. Oh yeah.
He was designated.
Wait, Albert Bell was. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
That was. Albert Bell was. Yeah.
We don't talk about Albert Bell in this house.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I was a fucking that was the one team that I was like a hometown kid for,
Oh yeah.
when I came here. It wasn't the Skins, wasn't the Caps, it was the fucking Orioles, man. I still to this day, man, I fucking love watching the Orioles.
Let me float this one out there.
Mm-hmm.
People get pissed when I make this distinction.
Mm-hmm.
My National League team,
Mm-hmm.
appropriately enough,
Mm-hmm.
the Nationals.
Mm-hmm.
My American League team,
Mm-hmm.
the Orioles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Cool. Some people are like, you can't root for both the DC
Yeah,
area.
it's like, well, they're not in the
Yeah, you
fucking.
can.
Yeah, you can. One's in fucking Baltimore and one's in Washington.
Okay.
Here's the question: what do you do when? What the hell do they call it? The
Beltway
Metro?
series?
Yeah, the Belt.
Intercont-
Yeah. What?
yeah.
Who do you root for the Beltway series?
Usually the Nets.
Usually the Nets.
But here, okay. So let me play devil's advocate.
Okay.
Can you root for the New York Mets and the New York Yankees?
No.
No.
That's fucking that's insane. That's fucking insane. And it's funny, most people, although I've met some that aren't this, but most people are Mets, Jets, Yankees, Giants. One of my friends, one of my coworkers, is Giants, Mets, which is weird. You don't see that all the time. And it's funny, someone came in to work once, this is like months and months ago, and it was a Spider-Man T-shirt, and it had like an Orioles, and I remember I turned to somebody and I was like, his favorite team's the Mets. It's a fucking bullshit shirt. It also pisses me off he likes the Mets.
He's from Queens.
Yeah, we fucking like the Yankees.
My grandfather liked the Dodgers even after they moved to Los Angeles.
Yeah, well, my dad still thinks the Mets he still thinks the Mets is an expansion team. I'm like, Dad, they celebrated their 50th anniversary like a year ago.
It's all right. My dad and I still think of the Dodgers as a Brooklyn team, even though
Ebbets Field has been long gone.
yeah, even though my dad was like 2 when they moved to LA, I was negative like 40 years old.
I mean, but Sam, for like your grandfather, that would make perfect sense. You know what I mean? Like you grow up watching the fucking Brooklyn Dodgers.
Brooklyn, yeah.
Brooklyn Dodgers sounds so much fucking cooler.
Does.
It does. Not to mention Los Angeles. They already have what? The Angels. I guess San Diego's got the Padres. San Diego Padres.
San Diego Padres. Hey, you look like you're married to one of the San Diego Padres.
I was referencing Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Yeah.
That's got
Oakland Athletics, San Francisco Giants.
yeah.
But
They are like one of the biggest states in the country, though.
true. But in SoCal, you've got the Angels and you've got the Padres.
Do you have a favorite baseball player of all time?
Oh.
City of Stars. That's been in my fucking head all day.
Probably Cal Ripken.
For me,
Not Billy Ripken.
No.
for me, it's a toss-up. Cal Ripken because of like him as a player,
He's a great guy.
or Nolan Ryan, just because his first name is Nolan and my last name was Nolan, and he was like having his heyday.
Also, you want to see the fucking greatest Nolan Ryan shit? He pegs Robin. What's his face? Robin Ventura. And Robin Ventura runs out to fight him, and Nolan Ryan gets in a headlock and just beats the fuck out of him. I like Robin Ventura.
I think I've seen that.
And here's the thing. Robin Ventura is like in his 20s at that point.
Oh, Nolan Ryan is like 87. He's still throwing like 95.
He started playing at like 75.
Yeah.
And he still kicks the shit out of
Oh,
Robin Ventura.
he immediately does. He throws the glove down. Like most pitchers, what they do is when this happens, they back up because what they're doing is they're buying time for the rest of the teams to come in between the two of them. He throws his glove down and just stands there like, all right, motherfucker. And you can see Robin Ventura is like, oh God, he's like hitting the
I have
brakes.
to commit.
Yeah, this is on national television.
I recently bought my mom Nolan Ryan's cookbook.
Oh shit, he has a cookbook.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, he has like a ranch down in Tejas.
Yeah. Well, he's still associated with the Rangers.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he owns them. Or,
but he's like big into if I'm remembering this correctly, he's like big into steaks.
Yeah.
And a little while ago, he like put out a steak cookbook, and my mom loves cooking steak, and we're a household of people that enjoy Nolan Ryan, all because his name is Nolan.
Because his name would be Nolan.
Yeah, because we're into nepotism even when it's not through blood.
Yeah.
Just by letters.
Yeah.
So when she saw that, she was like, "Oh!" She like had a Sam sound.
Yeah.
So I was like, I know what I'm getting you for your birthday.
Nice.
Yeah.
My first baseball memory was seeing him pitch against George Brett.
George Brett.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
And dude, George Brett's fucking hilarious, man. He's fucking hilarious.
He's fucking hilarious.
I'll believe you.
He's the guy who he got his 3,000th hit and got picked off first base. No, he's a legend. He's a fucking legend. But he tells a really funny story about shitting his pants. They should watch on YouTube. Like
Did
he tells.
Did he get punched by Robert Redford?
Yeah. He gets punched by
Or whoever
Roy
it is.
Hobbs.
Roy Hobbs, yeah, and Wonder Boy. But the what's my father has a Nolan Ryan rookie card.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, pretty good.
Nice. Unfortunately, baseball cards went the way of the dodo when they started printing like 7 rookie cards. and it's almost what comics did, where they like just oversaturated this
Variants.
market like crazy. And I used to buy. Whenever we
Foil
went.
covers.
My dad, before he became a comic guy when we were younger, I think it's one of the reasons he is a comic guy because it's a collector's mentality. Is he had an amazing, still does, has an amazing baseball card collection, and that was the one thing he let us splurge on because it was like cheap as shit. But two, we go somewhere and he'd be like, "You want to buy a pack of cards?" I'd be like, "Fuck yeah!" And I think that's where that's where inadvertently the comic thing started because he'd go to a place. We were really young. I don't remember where it was. I don't remember if it was in Virginia, but that was where I came across the Man of Steel, John Byrne stuff because it was like half sports memorabilia, half comic books. And,
that was a lot of comic shops in like the 90s.
Yeah.
It was
I miss that.
Comics and cards,
Yeah.
comics and sports cards.
So he'd go in there and spend, an hour, and he'd buy his cards, and he'd let me, buy one comic. That's where I came across, the Rocketeer and comic book forum for the first time, and mainly Superman and Batman, and all that good stuff. So, my favorite baseball player is Mickey Mantle, by the way.
I was thinking right before you got into that story that I didn't want to interrupt your story, but I was like, we still haven't gotten his
Yeah, it's
favorite.
fine. I probably said it a million times.
Mickey Mantle.
I just think he's the fucking greatest.
Mhm.
There's nobody better. Because that dude was he played on one leg his whole fucking his whole
Mhm.
career. He played with one arm his whole career. Was half hung over his whole career, and he still was a fucking beast. Just he was one of those guys, just pure natural talent. He didn't work. He didn't need to work out. He just was
Kinda
cut
like Ted
from oak.
Williams.
Yeah, Ted Williams. All those guys are great.
Imagine if Ted Williams. Thank you for your service, Ted Williams. Imagine if he hadn't gone off to fight in the Korean War.
Yeah,
because that was at his physical prime.
yeah.
So
It's amazing, man. How I don't know baseball like Moneyball talks about. It's just so fucking goddamn romantic that game.
how can you not be romantic about baseball?
And that's one of the reasons I like that it still holds on so hard to the traditions. Like it waited forever to do the instant replay. It waited forever to do the calling for for the umpires to review plays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's so many just little unwritten rules and traditions that I like about that.
Yeah.
There really hasn't been. I've seen direct to video baseball type movies. I think Tyler Hoechlin did one, but everybody wants something was definitely baseball themed.
Major League.
Major League. But in terms of recent, I don't know. There's
recent Trouble with the Curve. Draft Day.
Draft Day is football.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
No, I stand corrected.
Had Tom Welling in it.
Mr. 3000.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Moneyball.
Need I say more?
Yeah, I've seen that film.
Moneyball.
Moneyball for love of the game.
For love of the game's great.
The Jimmy Fallon one with the Red Sox.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
With Drew
Fever
Barrymore.
Pitch.
Yeah.
Fever Pitch. Yeah,
Never saw that actually, but and then
I think that to my other than Moneyball, I think that's the most recent actual baseball movie.
Trouble with the Curve, right?
I don't.
Trouble with the Curve was
2 years ago.
No, that was right after Gran Torino because I remember he was I'm retiring, and then a year or two later he's I'm in trouble with the curve. I'm like, you fucker. But and I didn't see it, but Bull Durham was one of the all-time greats too. Bull Durham, it's the kind of trilogy for me, if you want unofficial trilogy of baseball that I love is you want to feel the magic of baseball, watch Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
And what that can do to you in childhood and memories.
Yeah.
You want to watch the down and dirty hilariousness of being inside of a dugout, watch Bull Durham.
Yeah.
And you want to watch the heroics and
larger than life
epic mythology, King Arthur mythology. It's The Natural. Those are those three that those are untouchable in my opinion of sports films.
A League of Their Own.
That's a great one
That's
too.
a fantastic film.
That's one of my favorite.
That is the best character introduction of Tom Hanks' character. He just pisses in the sink for 3 minutes, and they're just timing it. And Madonna's like, "Fuck."
What if I go to catch a fly ball and then my tits fall out? It's you think there's a man in America that ain't seen your tits.
And also, what's her face? Gina Davis's sister is Tank Girl.
Yeah.
Lori Petty.
Yeah. From Point Break. Pride of the Yankees.
Oh yeah,
it's a great one.
Yeah, for some reason I was thinking I was Sergeant York, but I was thinking of Gary Cooper.
I know the most recent one. It was 42.
Oh yeah.
Well, everybody wants some too. I mean,
yeah.
But I actually haven't seen 42.
Mm-hmm. With Chadwick
Boseman and Harrison. I'm still grumpy as all hell Ford.
Yeah. Grumpa Lump.
The Grumpa Lumps. Indiana Jones. That's the Ralph Garman impression, and they always had a whip noise.
Yeah.
Next time on Talking Baseball with
God, I would love
Sam, Chris, and Jake.
Maybe we should do that during this, because by then, to be determined can be whatever I determine.
Yeah, it hasn't been determined yet.
Yeah,
you could turn it into a baseball show
during the season, maybe.
Yeah.
1930 style, like, hey, we're back here talking all about baseball.
We actually have those microphones that we hold with our hands.
Yeah, talkies. That's the future. But well,
it'll never catch on. It's just a gimmick.
Yeah, you'll see.
No one will be able to tell us apart because we'll all be doing the same voice.
But yeah, baseball, Ray. Again, check out Loose Ends. Number 1 comes out Wednesday, January 25th. And thanks again to Jason Latour for coming on the show.
Yeah. I knew that was like a dream of yours.
Yeah.
That answer says it
audience,
all.
If
that
you
answer
could
says
see
it
the
all.
shit-eating grin that Sam had when he said,
was,
I'm sure you could hear it, but like to see it was.
It was a voice he's never made before. He's like, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking. I also watched and I get on fine with my father, but I also watched Tron Legacy over the weekend.
Oh yeah,
which is another like fathers and sons film. Just like Clue or no Flynn. Am I still to create the perfect system? Yeah. But yeah, no, getting Jason on the show, and again, it starts out, as you guys have heard at this point, it starts out heavy, but it gets out so nice, and we're in hysterics by the end. Fried chicken. Well, yeah. So anyway, this has been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
Adios.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual Catching Up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.